Hey everybody, how's it going? My name is Jimmy. I actually filmed this video maybe 2 or 3 times by now, and I was just being too wordy. I want to get right into it. I'll have you know, I took a little break and had some Fritos flavored twists, honey barbecue, and ate about half the bag. So my blood sugar is good, and let's get right into episode 2, how I shot it. This is the picture we're going to be studying today. I like to get into the photography equipment that I used, as well as the thinking that went behind it, going into it, as well as leaving the venue, and what post-processing was done, how I did it. If you have any more questions, feel free to comment below. I'll be happy to answer any questions or take criticism. All right, let's get right into it. So this picture is of Deborah. She is the frontwoman, vocalist, and keyboardist for a band called Dogs in the Subway. They actually changed the name. I'll put the name right below, and they are awesome. My friend Bruce is the bassist for this band. I want to support them by taking pictures of them. This was many months ago, maybe about last March, this past March, and it was cold, and I wanted to make sure that I was familiar with this camera by then, which I was, and I thought I was. I got the XT1, and I brought a 35mm lens 1.4. This is the lens up close, you can see. This is a prime lens, and which means it has a fixed focal length. Okay, you can adjust the aperture, of course, but there's no zoom. That's what that means. Now, 35mm, it seems pretty close up, doesn't it? But with the 1.5 factor here, crop factor, it actually ends up being around 50mm, which people say is a natural eyesight focal meter, I guess, for the eyes, for human eyes. So this is the equivalent of that. When they're talking about the equivalent of a human eye, they're referring to a 35 with the 1.5 crop factor, or just 50mm in general, around there. Okay, so that's why I got it. Also, it's very sharp and very fast, so they say. I think all Fuji lenses are fast and clear, so they're all great. So, but this one is exceptionally great. At nighttime, it works really well, and I wanted really crisp pictures, no intentional blurring or anything like that. Let's see here. I kept it open most of the time between 2 and 1.4 here. Hopefully you guys can see that. And I kept it at aperture priority. Aperture priority meaning it is a type of automatic mode, meaning I can choose the aperture, also choose the limit for the ISO, and the camera will do the rest. It will compensate. Oh, you have a very large aperture, we'll shrink down the time value, the shutter speed. That's what that means. Instead of full-on manual, where you have to adjust everything on the fly, aperture priority is a great alternative, especially in a situation like this where you're going to shoot in a club and it's very dark and there's erratic lighting going here and there and messing with your shot. It's not really a constant environment. So in that reason alone, I went with aperture priority. You could do manual. You'd be doing a lot of fiddling around. Your nose would kind of be in your camera, but I came there to enjoy the show too and support my friend. That's not really supporting your friend if your nose is in your camera the whole time messing around with the settings. That'd be a different gig altogether. So because of the environment, and I played in this environment before, it was the Elbo room in Chicago, and I kind of knew the layout of the environment. So knowing that straight in, I knew what equipment to bring and what not to bring. For example, I did not bring a tripod to this gig because it's dark and black and slim, and I thought people would run into it or run into my camera, it would tip over, and that wrist strap would not help anybody, And so I didn't bring that. I just thought I would kind of freehand it and do it that way. And that would lead to more motion blur, but that's what the ISO and the shutter speed is for. What else did I bring? I brought a Nissan i40 flash. This is a mini flash here. It's pretty small and it works great. The reason why I brought it was because I wanted it off camera to the side of the performer. I didn't want it dead on. It can create red eye, it can create too much of an overexposure in the face and too much hard light. I set it pretty far away with a diffuser on it. A diffuser is a piece of plastic that kind of wipes out the light a little bit so it's not too harsh in someone's face, creating harsh shadows, which can be desirable at some points, but not in this case. I also want it in front of her because the back she's so well lit with such crazy lighting that I was afraid she'd be underexposed if I took a shot just like that. So the flash definitely helped. The photo you're looking at now has that going on. Now, for the most part, I did shoot in JPEG, but I shot in RAW for some of it, and I'll tell you guys what happened. I was shooting RAW with certain filters on it, say black and white or some sort of cool Instagram-looking filters, sepia, whatever, and it looked great when I would review it right away. And then I would take more shots with RAW, taking the pictures, and then I would look back at it later after turning off my camera, and the filters were gone. It would just be this drab looking picture, and I said, what the hell's going on? I shot in RAW, I shot in these pictures. What happened to the filters, that look I was going for? And that's when I really realized, like I mentioned in a previous video that I did a few videos back, RAW is RAW. When you shoot in RAW, you're not gonna get those filters. You do that later in post-processing. That's what RAW is for. It gives you the information to do with what you will. When I shot in RAW and even put those filters on, it was temporary. They were gone. Unless I shot in RAW plus JPEG, then that setting will be saved in a different file completely. But RAW is RAW. It takes it in as it is. There's nothing special going on except the fact there's tons of information. As soon as I learned that, I said, oh shit, all the pictures that I took are gone. You know, all the black and whites and the cool filters that I was doing are all gone. I just had these raw images, which is fine, but I didn't want that. I just wanted the cool images from the get-go. So I switched to JPEG, started messing with my settings again, and they finally stuck. And I started taking more pictures all over again. And that's how you're getting this image here. Now, let's get into the photo itself. This photo is of a lady, Deborah. She's an amazing singer and all that, and I wanted to convey that in the picture. I also want to convey the fact the viewer, whoever's looking at the picture, can get the experience of being in the show. That's the whole point of this concert photography, right? To give you the impression that you're there, because you weren't there. And with this photo, you can be there. You can jump in time and be there and experience it. That's a great thing about photography and art in general. So, I'll tell you guys this, when I shoot men, for example, for some reason I shoot kind of tilted from a lower angle towards their face, and this gives them more powerful look. I think men do like that, and they feel more confident when you're not straight in their face. It's a little more adversarial, I think, especially when you're too close up. A little down below makes them kind of like perk up their chin a little bit for some reason, I've noticed. With women, when I do that, I don't go up their nose or anything like that, but when I do a little bit of downward look, they kind of don't like that. They feel self-conscious about their chin. I'm not sure what it is, which I understand. Everyone has their thing. So when I shoot women, I kind of tend to shoot a little bit higher up going down. I don't do this all the time, but it is one of my little tricks here that makes them feel more slender and less self-conscious, and they're more free with their body to convey on film or camera, digital film. So that's kind of what I do most of the time. But in this case, in this picture here, you'll see I'm definitely at a lower angle than she is. She's on a high stage after all. So I started taking pictures like that, and I thought it really worked out well because it looks like I'm in the audience, and when you're looking at the picture, you're looking from an audience's perspective up front, watching her engage with the audience. And that's the cool thing about this picture. You'll also notice I have in the foreground there is a large black vocal monitor there. It's a large piece of equipment kind of in the way. Now, some people might ask me, why didn't you cut that out? Why did you put that in the frame to begin with? You guys should know, though, I don't do much cropping in post-processing. I like to frame it as is. That's the challenge. So when I took the shot, I intentionally put that in there, and I intentionally left it, because when you're in the audience, you're looking up at the subject. Isn't there crazy equipment in front of you? Isn't that part of the experience, having stuff in the way and you're kind of crowding towards the performer, ready to bum rush the stage? And that's kind of what it was all about. Also, it gives you depth. It has something in front, she's behind that thing, and the lights are behind her. So it's a very dimensional photo, in my opinion. It's not just some flat, everything's in focus kind of thing, which can be artful in itself, but not in this case. So that's kind of what I did here, and she looks great, and she has this makeup on that's very theatrical and matched her music, and just by looking at that smile she has, you can kind of look at this picture and kind of guess what kind of music she plays. Very theatrical, very poppy, and it just works well with this picture. So I like that you can look at it and kind of get an idea of who she is, what a fun time everyone had at the show. A little word about the post-processing that I did regarding the lights behind her. They were really harsh when I brought them back to my computer. Now, I had to fix some of it by bringing down the highlights and the whites in this picture. Now, I don't like painting some and doing some of the other this way and doing the contrast in her face. It looks too mismatched, in my opinion. So I'm not that good at photoshopping, which explains exactly why that happens. So I like to bring down everything at once within reason, and there is a compromise there because it'll affect her face and her features. So I did a little bit where it was manageable and still looks very hot back there and overexposed, but it is what it is, and I'm very happy with the shot in general. So when you guys are editing, please be sure to realize there's gonna be a compromise there unless you're really good at kind of pinpointing different fixes here and there and still make it look cohesive. All right, really quickly, let's go over some other pictures before I leave you guys. Here is Bruce. Bruce is a bassist in the band Dogs on the Subway. Of course, they changed their name, like I mentioned. And Bruce is playing bass here, and he's a very tall fellow, and it's kind of hard to get a good shot of him. You notice that the picture has kind of squeezed him and his bass, and I also brought down the contrast of colors. I find that when I do a series of pictures of the same night, if they all are the same, they kind of blend in too much together. So I kind of made this a sharp difference between the first picture that we saw. Here's another picture of the drummer. Also dealing with the harsh lights in this situation. Is it grainy? Yes. Was there high ISO? Probably very much so. But I'm not afraid of ISO. A lot of teachers will talk about ISO being the devil. You don't want to use ISO at all if you can help it. Guys, ISO, high ISO, and the graininess on these mirrorless cameras, especially with Fuji, they work really well with the picture itself, and there's hardly that much grain as there used to be back in the old days. Well, I'm not meaning old days, but before these kinds of cameras, the grain is very, very manageable. And I'm not even talking about post-processing. I'm just saying straight out of the camera, the grain sometimes can give you high dynamic range. It can give you a nice gritty look. And by the way, this is a dirty little club, guys, that you play hard rock in, so a little grit won't hurt anybody. I think it adds character to the shot. So here's another shot I want to show you guys is of Bruce's bass. Again, the bass is a very long, oblong object, and to get it in this shot was kind of difficult, so I took a few, and this is the best one that I got. It's a very vibrant colored looking bass. The pickguard has goldfish on it that was custom made for him in this graffiti type of style, which I love that pickguard. I've always wanted one for myself secretly, and it's bright orange and blue. I did it in black and white. I can't remember if I adjusted black and white in post-processing or if I did it black and white straight in the camera. Most likely I did it straight in the camera and just shot it in JPEG from there. You can tell it's a very vibrant guitar even though it's still in black and white. Isn't that funny how sometimes black and white can still make just as colorful of a statement when not in color? I think that's really interesting, and I love this shot. Here's the last shot I'm going to show you guys. It's another band completely. This is Joe Cool with his sunglasses on in a very dark arena, and I think it's a very interesting picture. It's bold, it's strong, it's colorful. You're looking at this picture, you're watching a rock band. They're playing rock and they're playing melodic songs, and the lights are going crazy. This beautiful blue and green. I think I may have saturated the color a little bit on the colors in the backs. I really want it to pop and make you feel like you're part of this crazy laser show with all this fog in there. I think it worked out pretty well, and I think all these pictures I've showed you today really represented the night as a whole. I hope you guys learned a lot in terms of what I did with the camera and how I shot it with the 35mm lens. If you guys don't have this lens, definitely look into it, at least rent it for a day and see how you like it. Thank you guys so much again. Please subscribe and give me a thumbs up for the effort, and I really appreciate your time. I'll see you in the next video. Bye!